Hello BookTube, I'm Jonathan and welcome to Words in Time. Now in today's video we're going to be talking about some classic sci-fi, a sci-fi classic. It's Foundation by Isaac Asimov. Now you might be aware that the TV series is now out on Apple TV+, which is very exciting, but in today's video we're just going to be talking about the book. So what is Foundation all about? Well, thousands of years in the future, a mathematician and psychologist named Harry Seldon has developed a new field of study, a new field of science called psychohistory. And what that does is, based on mathematics and sociological data, it predicts the future, not just for individuals or events, but for society as a whole. And so Seldon believes that the fall of this massive empire is imminent, and it's going to last a dark ages of 30,000 years. But if this empire follows his instructions using his psychohistory, they can limit that dark age to just 1,000 years. Now, no one wants to hear this, so Harry's somewhat exiled, and with a small group of contributors, he develops the Foundation, and it's up to them to lessen the impact of this fall on the empire. So this idea was loosely based on the fall of the Roman Empire, and so there's a little bit of mapping there, but it's also very original as well. And I think this is an excellent setup. The scale is massive, the development of psychohistory is very interesting to me. I think if you can suspend your disbelief a little bit, the notion that you can predict what society is going to be doing, or what the results are going to be of certain decisions thousands of years later, which is pretty impressive. If you can just accept that and roll with it, I think this is a really interesting, big scale book, and seeing those, it makes analytics fun. It's used in marketing, supply chain management, operations. Why not put it into a big idea sci-fi novel? So, what is the structure of the book? Well, it was actually originally published as 8 short stories in a magazine known as Astounding Science Fiction. So the first 4 of those are included in this book. So Foundation, there was an original trilogy, although Asimov, around 30 years later, did add to it. But the original books was a trilogy. The first 4 short stories were used to make this one, and he actually wrote an additional story as an introduction to get this one started. So there are some time jumps, there are some characters that come and go, so just be aware of that. Some people might feel it's a little bit disjointed. I felt like there was enough of a through narrative that connected the stories together that didn't bother me, but just be aware that it might feel a little bit chopped up compared to some novels, just because it was originally written as those short stories. So what are some of the themes that Foundation explores? Well, there's a lot going on in Foundation. I really like the world building. You have this empire that's advanced technologically, but is kind of arrogant. And the political struggles in this book are a real strength. There's a lot going on in terms of how do certain characters, how do they gain the power they need in order to get other people to do what they want, to get the outcome that they want. And if they don't have the power, well, how do they get those people to do what they want them to without them knowing that you're making them do what you want them to? So religion and culture is a big aspect of the book as well, in terms of, is that an impediment to the plan of the Foundation? Is that going to make it harder to implement certain things in order to save the empire? Or can you actually use those as a tool? Are they weapons at your disposal? So the dynamics there of religion in this future society was very, very well done. So I think those themes were all really successful in terms of help moving the story along, moving the ideas along. There's not a lot of action in this book. It's definitely, I wouldn't say it's a space opera or a lot of action adventure. It's a lot of people talking in rooms, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you've watched Succession on HBO, just people talking in rooms, but good show. So it's pretty similar to that, except set in space with some very, very large ideas. Now, In terms of the characters, we are introduced to a number of characters in the book, and some are stronger than others. There are a handful which were quite memorable, a handful which were quite distinct, but a lot of people felt a little samey. A lot of, as I said, as people talking in rooms, some of those people start to blur together a little bit. So I would say that that's not a real strength of the book. I think Asimov in Foundation spends more time developing the ideas than he does developing characters or creating a depth of character. So if you're interested in the ideas, that might not bother you too much. If you're someone that reads full characters, full character development, there might not be as much for you to sink your teeth into in Foundation, but it might not be a complete deal breaker either. So Foundation, the ending. Obviously this is a spoiler-free review, so I'm not going to give it away, but just my general thoughts were that I liked the ending. I thought it was interesting, but it didn't feel like a complete story. If you had told me that this was halfway through the short stories, I would say that makes sense. There's a natural breaking point, but it is teeing up more to come. In general, something that I really liked that the book did was it kept on proposing more problems. There was always complex issues and problems to try and have to solve that kept the story going along. But sometimes the solutions to those problems felt a little bit simple. Psychohistory could often be used to explain a lot of things. Someone with a character would say, "Wow, how did you figure it out?" And an answer would often be something along the lines of, well, that was the only solution. It's like, okay, I understand something as complex as psychohistory would be hard to explain in specifics, but I would have liked just perhaps a little bit more in-world logic, perhaps, in order to make those realizations, make those victories a little bit more rewarding. Charlie agrees with me. Dog barking in the background. That's just how excited she is about Foundation. So there you go. There's some thoughts on the ending. So putting all of this together, I can definitely see why this is a sci-fi classic. There's a lot going on here. I have read the trilogy, so there's more to come in terms of what this book sets up and where it goes. But for this book alone, I think it falls just short of being one of my personal favorites. I would have liked a little bit more character, a little bit more rewarding conclusions to some of the narrative threads, but overall, I love what's going on here. Strong recommendation. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. So there you have it. That's Foundation by Isaac Asimov. If you read it, let me know what you think. What were your thoughts? Did you enjoy it as much as I did, or perhaps even more? And we'll get onto the trilogy later, but let me know also what you think of the trilogy as a whole. If you haven't read it, did I sell you on it? It's a classic. I like some classics more than others. This one I like quite a lot, so let me know if you're interested in picking it up. So there you have it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it as always, and stay tuned for the next in the Foundation series and other sci-fi book reviews coming soon.